Hello and welcome. This is the Red Report, Barnsley FC's longest running podcast, part of the TalkSport Fans Network, and of course powered by Barnsley Sport. We're a week and a half into the 23-24 season, and Barnsley fans find themselves arguing, worrying, and venting at each other and the club. So after a week away, a short stay in hospital, I think it's time to call my mates, get together, and let's find out what's actually happening and give
when are they coming then?
and give their views on everything. You heard him because he normally talks before he's prompted. Steve is here. Steve, right? Just explain for the people that are listening to the podcast. You've got a little subtitle under your name. Just talk to me about it. What does it say, and why have we put this on today?
Julian Key Appreciation Society, why not? Everybody else seems to be slagging her off, but I still like home shirts, so I think, you know what, get this promotion in. She's supposed to be PR guru and all this sort of thing. So let's support her, and let's see if we can get to know why. Shop's absolutely bleeding empty. They're into shirt to be bought, and we're nearly 2 weeks into the season. How much revenue have we lost? I'm sure she'll be able to answer these questions even tonight on YouTube, which will be a nice start to the conversation, I'm sure.
And also joining us, various articles written this week already, Ian, but you're here again to give your views. Ian, or Red Report Ian, how are you this evening?
I'm very well. Good evening, chaps.
Good evening. Good evening. Now,
it's at the toilet, mate. Sounds a bit echoey.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah, I'm in the no
guest toilet. Oh, covered in it again.
Ian, if you need a minute to flush, just put yourself on mute and come back whenever you need to, mate. All right.
Cheers,
so, right, let's start. Steve, let's start with you this week. 3 matches, league matches, a win, a draw, a loss. Why are people panicking?
Because that's what people do, mate. You should know that. Obviously, we're Barnsley fans. That's what we do best. Everybody will have got carried away at 7-0 and thought we're world beaters and we'll be signing Messi and Ronaldo, and nobody will want to go to Saudi Arabia. They'll all want to come to us. Then we come back to earth with a bit of a bang in Cup, but nobody cares about Cup anyway, so that's fair enough. But Tuesday night, obviously the main one, decent first half, played some decent football. Peterborough always looked a threat, pace-wise. I think that's one of the main things that came out of Tuesday night is the fact that we're very slow, even on the break. Peterborough always looked as though they were going to do something. Then we went and scored, and everything went tits up from there, really. Performance dropped. We sat back. We let them attack us. We made stupid mistakes. You question at times, perhaps the substitutions. Would you have done it like that? You question a bit of the formation. Would you have changed it? So then everybody goes into meltdown, and we'll be relegated by Christmas. So basically, a normal first couple of weeks in Barnsley.
Ian, is it fair to say, I saw a couple of comments on Twitter that Peterborough is run to a similar model as ourselves, finding young talent, developing them, and then selling them on. And somebody put they were able to hold on to their assets because the price that they wanted clearly wasn't matched by anyone. Was it maybe a bit more sort of, blown up or amplified because it was Peterborough that we lost against, and their strikers are still their strikers, and, they're in form and they're doing really, really well? Or is it more maybe fair to say that actually it was on the pitch, it was the players' issues, the players or maybe the head coach issues, that sitting back and defending a 1-0 lead is never going to work in this league? Where do you sort of, can we say, lay the blame, or where did it go wrong?
A bit of both, really. You can't, I've said this, and I know it's difficult, but our board could learn a lot from some other clubs in League One who've managed to keep hold of their best players and they've hit the ground running. Posh won 3 out of 3 now, or they're up there, second or something. But I think ultimately it was what went on the pitch. It was always going to be a tough game. It was always going to be a real challenge. We knew they're going to be up there again, Peterborough. We know that. individual mistakes, which Neil Collins can't legislate for. But like Steve said, there were some times where people said, why take Cole and Watters off when Watters was like a bag of spanners, absolute waste of time, but Cole was at least still trying. But you can't legislate for individual errors, Williams, and certainly Kitchen. The midfield was slow, ponderous. We've got apart from the wing backs, we've got no pace to cut teams open, whereas Bristol Rovers and then Peterborough just cut through the centre of us. Without Luke O'Connell, there is no leader, there is no somebody who sets the pace, and you can't. Neil Collins can't legislate for that, can he?
It's Steve. It's strange, isn't it? We talked a lot about Herbie Kane last season, how good he was in that settled midfield. You know that he played almost like, you know, for the price tag that we played for him, played really, really well. It's fair to say that quite a few players had an off evening on Tuesday evening, and there was quite a bit of abuse hurled. Then a day or 2 days later, he does the press conference, very open and honest. You know, Adam Oxley is asking him questions. According to him, nobody from the club has been about extending his contract. I'll be honest, I wouldn't expect the club to come in the first 10 days of the new season. I think those discussions will probably start maybe before Christmas or something like that, but that's just me. And he says that, you know, there needs to be more signings, and everybody is suddenly back. You know, they went into Herbie Kane is shite and he needs to go. And then he says there has been no contract negotiations and he feels we need more players, and everybody is back on the Herbie Kane bandwagon. Bit unfair, isn't it, really? Because there is some blame to lay at players' feet for Tuesday. And would you have expected the club to enter negotiations sort of like day 12 of the new season for the 24-25 season with a player?
No, not really, to be honest. It is nice that a player can come out and feel that he can make honest comments, which is always good. However, it does make you wonder whether that's going to shoot him in foot as far as the club's concerned. I mean, I do remember a couple of seasons ago, a certain defender making similar sort of comments that were quite unusual to make at that time from a player. And since then, he's obviously moved on. And after them comments, you know, he sort of got castigated in press and Twitter and Facebook, etc. And his name escapes me, but I just put that down to old age. But there you go. I went to Blackburn. Can't remember his name. What was his name? And so it's just not me then. That's fine.
Oh, yeah. Britain.
Callum Britton. Hey.
Yeah.
Sorry for the delay.
He's well liked.
Yeah. As for Herbie Kane's performance, I mean, I had to go at Herbie Kane a couple of seasons back, and I always said that he was living off one decent season at Donny, and then we went and paid over £1 million for him. He basically did nothing for a season, went to Oxford and was fairly decent, came back and had a really good season for us last season. So I thought he'd sort of turned the corner. However, you look at him from Tuesday night, and he actually demonstrated more than anybody else how slow and ponderous our midfield is. With no pace in there at all. But the thing that let him down on Tuesday for me were his passing. Corners and free kicks, he couldn't even beat first man. So that were a bit disappointing. Again, let's not get carried away. Christ, we're only 2 proper games into the season. But it makes you wonder whether he is set up for a move, that they haven't started talking about contracts. Who knows? Maybe he's come out and said all this. So it does cause a stir because he wants to move. I mean, you've got to say, we talked about Kitchen a few moments ago. You know, his head's been turned. You can see that. He was shocking on Tuesday night. He played worse on Tuesday than he did 12 months since. So has his head been turned? And if so, why are we not getting on at him and saying, like we did with Callum Styles last season, get sent off? Because it's exactly the same situation.
Steve, Ian, it's strange, isn't it? Because obviously I couldn't go on Tuesday. I was in hospital, so I listened to my colleagues for hospital radio. It sounded like we're looking for leaders on the pitch as well, which is ironic to say. We knew Mads were going anyway, so But Norwood was a bit of a leader, was a mentor, was a guide, and obviously he's gone as well. It's still early days, but it feels like maybe there's a lot resting on Kitchen's shoulders, his future at Barnsley FC. It's a bad place to be a captain as well in that position then, isn't it? When you've been linked with a move away. We're missing Connell, who can maybe be that influence. But is it fair to say that maybe that model of these young players and experience, because a player can have lots of experience, but it doesn't necessarily make him a leader, does it? Do we lack leaders in the 11 that we've got at the moment?
I think so, yeah. It was noticeable Liam Roberts in that Port Vale game, how he was shouting and bawling at his defenders, which is a good sign of a keeper. But you look across that side, and there's not many other people who are putting an arm around. Or you look at that team spirit, especially in that second half of the season, and you look at that team spirit after that semi-final against Bolton, certainly that second leg, and the atmosphere and how they celebrated it, and look at it now, and it looks a shadow of the place. And I just felt Kane's frustration, and he's one of the senior players in that squad, as in he's been here longer than a few of them, and he must be sort of sat there thinking, why are we doing it again? Why are we, we're building this team. We had a right good shot at it last season. Suddenly you've lost all these players. You're bringing in these other lads who are going to take 12, 18 months to settle in. And we're back to square one. We had a real chance of Championship football last season, just missed out. And you then go and sell all your experience, and you're going to lose one or two. But I sensed a real frustration from it, and I sense that's coming from the dressing room. And I think Norwood's come out and said exactly the same, and then he's gone. And Kane said the same. And you're not telling me that two senior pros or people who've been there longer than Moss, I know Norwood only there 12 months, but he's a senior pro, are coming out and saying this. There's got to be something in that dressing room that they're not happy with the board, not the manager, with the board.
Steve, Collins was asked in the press conference yesterday about it all, and he said it's unfair to judge after 3 matches, and he also mentioned that there's quite a few players who are injured or not playing at the moment. Now, is it fair to say that Connell is probably the biggest miss, because players as good as they are, as Matty Wolf, Cundy, McCarthy, were never really so far, besides McCarthy maybe, first team players, were they? No. It's all right saying we've still got injuries, but actually fully fit, how many of those that are injured at the moment, besides Connell, would actually start? Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, obviously we're going on last season. Connell was the shining light. We got him for naught, and he's shown to be a battler. He can play a ball, he can have a shot. He's always talking. He's got a lot of character about him. But you don't build a team around one player. This is the thing. And we're all saying, it'll all be different when Connell comes back. What happens if it's not? Do you know what I mean? You've got to keep a level head in this situation. And yeah, I want Connell back tomorrow, and we know he's not going to be. And I don't think anybody's got a true reflection on what has been wrong with him, whether it's been a physical illness, whether it's been a mental illness. Nobody seems to know. There's nothing coming out of the club. Apparently, he's back training from what I read somewhere yesterday, I think. So the sooner we can get him back, the better. But you can see there's definitely not the same camaraderie between the players. Not at the minute, anyway. No. I don't put it down to Collins at all, because, like you said, why are we panicking 3 games in? 1-1 draw and 1 lost one. And the one that we've lost, nobody cares about. So, and the one that we've drawn, nobody cares about, should I say. So,
we lost against Peterborough, didn't we?
Lost against Cup game. Even Cup game is just not important. No. It's 3 games in, so don't panic. But I understand the need for experience, and you can see that. And I think that's what Herbie Kane were trying to put across. That we have lost players that were an influence on the younger players and on the team as a whole. And if you don't replace that, you are back to 11 individuals And if they are young, perhaps they haven't got an idea of what's required to make a League One winning side. And some of them obviously, are new to this.
So did Ian the opening day win, because that changed people's mindset straight away? They wanted owners out. They needed to be sold. They needed to be, in Peel Square in the stock so we could throw stuff. And that's immediately changed after 7-0. They were the best things ever in the football world. Was that result then papering over the cracks maybe a little bit? Was that maybe down to Port Vale not being very good? Or is it more a mindset thing for the Barnsley players? Because if they're capable of beating Port Vale 7-0, why do we surrender a 1-0 lead at home on a Tuesday night against Peterborough?
I think Port Vale was a freak result, wasn't it? Everything we hit went in. First 20 minutes, we were played off the park. People seem to forget that. We couldn't get out of our own half in that first 20 minutes. And there were grumblings in the crowd at one point until we had that one break. Our first proper attack scored and everybody just relaxed and the players relaxed. And we got a second right on half time, killed the game. And everything we hit in the second half went in. So it was a freak result. I think we're on level points with Port Vale. So it wasn't, and I've said to a lot of people, it wasn't a 7-0 performance. We didn't play champagne football, and it was, I say, first 20, 25 minutes, we're all Vale. So it did probably paper over the cracks. I think it's more, I think 4 points out of the first 3 games. Is it 4 points out of the first 3 games? Yeah. Isn't too bad. Isn't that bad. Bristol Rovers look good. It was more the performances, isn't it? I mean, you look at Bristol Rovers, we scored after 7 minutes and then did nothing for the next 80 odd, and it were all one-way traffic. And to be honest, if they'd have had the scoring boots on, that'd have been 4 or 5. That was the danger. And for 55 minutes, we played well against Peterborough. It was a cracking game to watch, and we really went, end to end and toe to toe with them. But we seem to have this thing where at the minute, and it's been well documented, we go 1-up and we don't know what to do. And we go in our shell and just, do we hold on to it instead of going for a second or bossing the game? Yeah. That's been...
I've got to say that Liam Roberts, I thought, was outstanding on Tuesday night.
But he's made he's made some incredible... He made some great saves in that Port Vale game at 0-0.
Yeah, he could be, I know we talk about signings at season, and hopefully we've not made signing at season yet, but... He's looking really good as a keeper.
Well, in that vein, Dan, because that's my next question. We've talked 17 minutes and 54 seconds about negatives. What are the positives? Let's talk about some of the positives. You mentioned Liam Roberts. Is it fair to say that Casper Lapata is showing signs of being a really, really good defender for us as well? Is there anyone else?
I thought Cotter had a good game on Tuesday night, first half. It were only one really that had got any sort of pace and actually showed any sort of attacking. I mean, all right, he scored. Were it lucky? Were it a shot? Were it a cross? Don't care. Went in. So I thought Cotter had a decent game, to be honest. That might be about it. Cadden weren't so bad.
Yeah, but, I tend to agree. I think Lapata looks, it looks like could be another Mads Anderson. It looks a belting signing. Liam Roberts, I mean, we're like going Harry Eystead who, Brad Collins who, he's come in and done a great job already. I like Cotter. He might not be, there's room for improvement, but the lad wants to get on the ball and the lad wants to try and make things happen. And Nicky Cadden has put some great balls in so far this season, and then has scored a good goal as well. So there are smatterings, but the trouble is we look like 11 individuals who've not had a pre-season together. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And finally, Dan, on all this, what about the strength in depth? What is it that we need? We talk about, you look at the bench sometimes. I'll go to Ian first because Steve's already laughing. What is it before this transfer season finishes that we would need to sign, or what position do we need to sign for to just give that? Because it's all right having a really good starting 11, but we know with McCarthy last season, one injury can put somebody out for the rest of the season. So you need cover for places. Where does Barnsley need to strengthen, Ben?
I think you've got to remember we've got quite an injury list, and there's a couple of centre halves there that would be on the bench and give us options. midfielders. I'd like to see. We've got a few strikers, so I'd like to see somebody from a midfielder who can thread a ball through, who can win a game, who can put a ball through for Cole to go one-on-one with somebody, or really, I'm not seeing it with Styles yet this season. Just somebody like just a midfielder that can make things happen and make us tick and create chances. And Kane's not quite done it. Connell plays a little bit deeper. John Russell's very laboured in his mannerisms. I'd like to see a midfielder who can make things happen, a bit like Luke Thomas could do occasionally.
What about you, Steve?
I want somebody who can run fast. I'd just like to see some pace. We haven't had anybody really pace-wise for quite a number of seasons, to be honest, whether it's a winger or a midfielder or a striker. I just want to see some sort of injection of pace into that side. It's all right playing fancy football and knocking ball about, etc. But with no real outlet ball that you can have a quick break. Peterborough showed that on Tuesday night. They could get upfield really quick. They've got 2 or 3 options for an out ball. And I get what Ian says about a midfielder who can play a pass. But it's no good having somebody who can play a pass if you ain't got nobody to pass it to. And we seem to do quite a lot of sideways and backwards passing, as we always do, on Tuesday. So, I'd just like to see whether it's a striker, a forward, an attacking midfield, whatever. Let's just try and get a bit of pace in a side that is very sedate. It really is.
Let's talk then. It's Friday as we're recording this, 5:30. In an hour and a half, there's an open forum at the club, and it is being broadcast live via their YouTube channel, I believe.
Is it not secret?
No, not this one. Not this
one.
You're
not going?
No. We went to
You're
the
not
other one.
Invite, love.
We went to the other one, Steve. Anybody that wanted to go could have gone. There were 200 tickets up for grabs.
Exactly.
And 200 people got one, and the others, you can. And the thing is, as well, if you didn't get a ticket, you can actually. Jacqueline Ankia says you can tweet her with a question if you've got it, and if it's an appropriate question, that will be asked. Ian, potentially, because that could be a quite toxic atmosphere, isn't it? Which is the one thing you want to avoid, because I believe Neil Collins will be there tonight as well. How do you see this one go? Because people want to know about the shirts. And you know what? Absolutely valid to have a marketing supremo on the board and being 2-3 weeks into a season. And I know they'll say it's supplier issues, and I get that completely.
No, that's not supplier issues at all. You look at other clubs that have got the same supplier as us, and they had their shirts at end of bloody May.
I'm not saying that's
anyway,
what they're going to say. But they're not going to say we forgot to order them, are they? So listen, whatever they say. But so those sort of comments I think are absolutely valid. We brought people in for their expertise. Steve, I don't know, but Steve saying, you can't get much in the shop. People have ordered shirts and we're still waiting. So that is what sort of atmosphere are you expecting? People want the big news from Khaled, and personally I think it was too early to even mention that. You should have waited with that. Until you can give a time frame of within the next 4 weeks, we've got some exciting news for you. What are you expecting, and are you watching?
I'll try and watch. I think they're all very, very valid points. I think the stuff there's not a problem. Is there a lot to ask Neil Collins on the pitch? We know that the transfer window's still open a little bit. He's only just sort of settling in.
3 weeks in. What can you ask?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the questions are more going to be for Khaled and Julian Key, without a shadow of a doubt. We'll laugh about the big news, but it's a valid point. He did come out with it just as the early bird season ticket sales were coming out. The shirt thing is it Fanatics they've got now, who are a renowned company?
Oh yeah.
Sort all the shirts out for all the other football clubs. No other football club has had this issue, and on the first game of the season, you normally see thousands of fans with the new shirts.
On the open day, normally open day.
Yeah. Except Barnsley Football Club. My lad, he's still looking at his order on his phone, still showing us pending. They took the 60 quid off him quick enough.
Yeah.
But he's still waiting for the bloody,
absolute joke.
Still waiting for the bloody shirt. And it's now supposed to be coming next week. Nearly, by the end of the bloody month. And it's genuine. I mean, fans can gripe about some stuff, and sometimes you think, oh, give over, that's a silly question. But I think they're going to be very, very valid points. There's issues of, they keep going on about the standing. I saw all the comments that people were saying about when the club tweeted out about, don't stand and all this. There's a real underbelly of like discontent, and the genuine questions fall aboard. So I think Neil Collins might probably not get a chance to answer some questions, because it's all going to be at the board. Because let's face it, these fans forum only come around every now and again, and it is a chance to front up the powers that be at the club.
And again, and I'm not taking anything away, because I'm not a happy clapper. But again, when I read the articles from the club about the standing, it's not the club saying we don't want you to stand up. It's the club of being reminded by the EFL and by all these other people and the safety groups and everything else that they're just passing a message along there. So, and I get, and if one thing Carlo will be really good at is hopefully reiterating that to people. Because I think a lot of people think Carlo sits in his office and thinks, what can I do to piss him off this week? Tell you what, I'm going to tell him not to stand. And it's not, you know what I mean? It's not like that, isn't it? So, are you watching, Steve, tonight?
I'm going to try to. Hopefully I can, if I can find it, wherever it is on YouTube. I'm sure you're going to tell everybody, all our lovely listeners, whereabouts they can find it at some point. Obviously, I've got a blank look again. Never mind. I'm going to try and watch it, see what's to be said. I hope it doesn't descend into, a bad experience or a farce or whatever you want to call it. I hope people who go are the genuine people who, if you say a piece on Twitter, I hope they're managing to get there tonight and say the piece there, and not just save it for a keyboard when they get home. There are a lot of relevant questions, like we've said, surrounding shirts, the standing part, which, let's face it, if we could have standing, I'm sure they would apply for it, which is what any EFL club can do. They can apply for standing. You can't just stand up, because they won't let you. So to me, that there's no argument there. All they're doing is backing up what EFL's telling them. I think the main questions tonight are going to be around team selection, player selection. We've gone back to the spreadsheet. Is the spreadsheet working? You make your own mind up about that. It's just going to be about recruit. I think a lot of the questions will be around recruitment, around selling. Obviously, the question of Kitchen, I think, will arise, and somebody's going to obviously ask, is Kitchen going, yes or no? We heard one thing previously. Obviously, that could be changing now, which is fine. If he's going, that's fine. But I hope it's a sensible evening with sensible questions, and not your usual keyboard warriors who think they can now put a face to a voice sort of thing.
Just before we finish off then, Oxford at home, Saturday.
You can get a pint in 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Nice, actually, as well. I've tried it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it when I got home and I realised how much I'd paid for it. But anyway, that's another thing.
Changes from Tuesday night then. Who's coming in, who's going to the bench, or who's staying at home and not even part of the squad?
Adam Phillips, first one. That's the only change for me. That's the only thing I think he'll change. I'd like to change 2 or 3, but I think the only change will be Adam Phillips for Russell.
Yeah, Russell to the bench, possibly Waters. I think he looks a bit off at the minute. I'd give Dallas full 90 minutes if he's fit enough. But other than that...
For me, Kitchen won't play tomorrow. I'm sorry, but he wouldn't. Kitchen won't play.
He doesn't deserve to play. He's not played well in these games.
No.
It's been a mixed week when you think of Barnsley as a town and a football club this week. One of our own is in the World Cup final at 11 o'clock on Monday morning in Bethany, England. Obviously, Hills from town took one of the penalties and they're in the final. Sad news as well when one of the more famous sons of this town, Michael Parkinson, sadly passed away. So let's hope that on Saturday, Barnsley Football Club can put another notch on the positive ones. And to make sure they do, Ian, score prediction and the first goal scorer, please.
Flipping heck, put me on the spot. Well,
I like it when he does you first.
Well,
Yeah, matron.
Steve is
You know
now
what I'm
looking at the
saying.
phone table.
is the negative first. Oxford haven't won at Oldwell since '93, so 30 years, so they're due to win. And they wiped the floor with Derby the other night and should have probably put 4 or 5 past them. So I'll probably say I'll go 1-1. First goal scorer, Cadden.
I'll go Herbie Kane, 2-1 Barnsley.
Ooh. I'm going to go
Steve.
Swansea win, Coventry 3. I think Coventry will win. Are we not talking about? No, we're not talking about Coventry, are we? Do you know what? I think it will be a 1-1 draw. And who's going to score?
Own goal.
Well, up to now, only attacking threats being Cotter. So you know what? I'm going to go Barry Cotter again.
Yeah. Well, I'll be in Skeg Vegas tomorrow, so I'll be watching from the caravan or listening.
Are you sure? Do you ever go to any of these games, you Barnsley fan?
I'm in the Lake District as well, so it's only you going.
Well, actually, I'm not going tomorrow because I'm going somewhere else. So actually, none of us are going tomorrow.
Where are you going? Sorry, Steve. Where are you going?
I'm going to Shepfest in York.
Shepfest.
Shepfest.
Is that something you can tell us about before 8 o'clock on a Friday, or do we have to wait till the
Covered in German Shepherds. Well, there you go.
And on that note,
I'm taking one of mine up there because it's like it's like Nebworth for German Shepherds. So there you go. That's where I'm going tomorrow. If I can get back in time, I might actually get there. But if I'm having too good a time, you know what? Stuff them. They don't come and see me when I'm bad, so I don't see why I should go and see them.
You have been listening to the Reds Report, Barnsley FC, the longest running podcast. Proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network and powered by Barnsley Sport. We'll be back next week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. You Reds.